your task is to help the business make more money at about the same or lower cost. We talk a little bit about, as a VP of engineering and a senior director of engineering and maybe a director of engineering, what do you think the biggest differences between them are? To your most recent work experience as VP of engineering. We have Suresh Joshi joining us today. So Suresh was most recently VP of engineering at Boast, a fintech startup. Before that, he was senior director of engineering at Coupang, the Korean Amazon. And then before that, senior director of engineering at Expedia, one of the biggest travel planning companies. And then you were spending 6 years at Amazon, starting with a technical product owner, and then progressing through the career, you were head of engineering for delivery and social shopping experience. So thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your experience. Maybe you can share some stories or some advice for software engineering manager who are maybe new or mid-level in the career, trying to get to the next level, being director, being a senior director. What sort of advice will you have for them?
Yeah. I think first and foremost, leadership is a choice. It's a service, and it's an opportunity. So, not many people, get into leadership roles with knowing fully well what they are getting in themselves into. In my mind, I think it is about creating your own opportunities. It's about stepping up. It's about taking on roles where other people would consider as trash, and it's about standing in moments of crisis and helping the team navigate through it. So I think to me, it's got the vision component, the mission component, and the values component. All of these three make a good leader. Then of course you got to have the technical, the substance, but at the end of the day, I think it's a choice. It's not everybody's cup of tea. So there are going to be people who are going to say, look, I'm really great at what I do, and I want to continue doing that. I don't want to, deal with, everybody else's problems. I don't want to create the vision for everyone else. I have a clarity of where I want to be and how I can impact. Leaders are more of multipliers. So to me, I think that's the key. The key word to keep in mind is you have to facilitate, you have to multiply through others, and you have to groom others to be in those shoes, and that's how you create the impact.
And on that point, right? Do you think there's a distinction between a technical leader and a people leader or people manager? That's what I call them.
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think at the end of the day, leadership is not just about management. In every role has an opportunity throughout their careers to step up and own things. It's about ownership. It's about showing courage in the face of fire. I think that to me is true leadership. It's about helping others see their blind spots and helping them course correct themselves. So a lot of times you could be a mentor in a technical role, and you could be an architect in a technical role, and you can set the direction for a platform. You can see the blind spots of the platform, but you may not be managing people in the classic sense of the word. At the end of the day, you are still a leader because you're going to help your organization or the company navigate those challenges and set the path for success.
Got it. And tied to your most recent work experience as VP of engineering, could you describe what does it mean and what is your job scope as a VP of engineering?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, for me personally, it's one scope, but at the end of the day, I think it depends upon the company, the size, people. I was VP of engineering, Boast AI, Boast, also known as Boast Capital, which is a post-Series A type of a company, size of company, just to give you an idea. I was brought in to help transform engineering to be more of an ROI-driven R&D. And I had worked with the CEO of the company in the past, and since then I had gone into many different R&D shops. And so one of the things I had seen is what best in class looks like at different companies of different sizes. It takes to grow a startup from a startup to running multi-billion-dollar business. So trying to bring that mindset of what ROI-driven R&D is, the common vision I shared with the CEO, And that's what brought me to this company.
Combination of people problem, technical problem, and then just combining it with business, because it sounds like ultimately your task is to help the business make more money at about the same or lower cost.
I mean, let me give you an example. Every R&D leader today has to make a choice. Where am I invested? How much am I invested? What are the blind spots in my platform? What are the blind spots in my investments where the platform will not scale? And how do I get ahead of it? It is all about optimizing these choices and these decisions. And a key skill set that every R&D leader needs to have, or every leader for that matter, is the ability to dive deep. And dive deep and identify where the blind spots exist, where the business is going, and where the investment needs to correspondingly go, and how do you get ahead of those blind spots.
So do you need to do, I'm guessing, some forward projection? It's going to grow, macroeconomics, maybe things are going to slow down. So could you talk a little bit about how do you even do that projection, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of times you have to react to the situation that exists. You're right. You also have to have a certain degree of foresight, but you can't overthink. Nobody can predict the future. We live in a day and age where changes happen very fast. Nobody predicted the collapse of the regional banks, and in those circumstances, a lot of our customers had their money tied up in that. And so in those circumstances, you have to be very careful about how much are you going to invest to grow versus how much you're going to wait and decide when to invest. Because sometimes you slow down your investments, you're going to miss the window of opportunity and somebody else will get ahead of you.
So can you talk a little bit about, as a VP of engineering and a senior director of engineering and maybe a director of engineering, what do you think the biggest differences between them are?
Great question. I think I'd like to avoid the titles, but I'll give an example. I just try to tier it. You have the first level manager, you have the mid-level manager, and you have executive leaders, right? First level manager typically has a charter that is aligned to the overall mission of the company in some shape or form, supporting either another team's success, but at the end of the day, they are supporting the overall OKRs of the company, or success criteria, the overall output metrics, or whatever ways in which the company is measuring its success, and what inputs are needed to drive that success, those output metrics. Those, in most companies, those inputs are then divided amongst the respective teams or charters or line of businesses or what have you.
Here, how I'm hearing it is that frontline manager is responsible for a very specific charter. There's all the way up to the company initiative, and then middle layer manager, there's kind of taking multiple of those charters, and then at executive leadership, you're probably taking one line of business, right? So there's very clear end-to-end ownership that you're driving for maybe one specific product.
Right.
I would love to hear your takeaway, right? Like usually people say that as you progress at each layer, each title bump, there's a really good book that I like. It's like, what got you here won't get you there.
Right.
And it's essentially, people describe that as, it's like a stepwise function, right? There's a big jump to get to the next level. So I'd love to hear from your perspective, like what was your biggest takeaway when you started from a frontline manager to executive leadership?
At the end, every leader has to think about what I call, the product, the people, and the process or the mechanism. Some people call it 3 Ps. You can call it PPM, right? Every leader has to think about that. It's just the scope is different, right? And as the scope increases from, let's say, your team level ownership to a portfolio of products to an entire line of business, then at the end of the day, who you influence sideways and upwards changes, right? As an example, no big product in any big company happens without partnerships and without collaboration with sister teams or even external partners, right? People side, there is also an opportunity in terms of how do you groom leaders. As you grow in leadership, it's very important that you have the right people step in and take ownership of pieces of the charter, because you cannot scale if your team can't scale. So it's very important to organize the team the right way and get the right people who you can invest in, who you have the potential. Vision is long standing. It is what brings people together. It is what rallies everyone. And a great leader, if somebody who is owning a line of business or somebody is running a company, for a startup, at the end of the day, it's very important for them to have that right long-term vision that everybody will rally along. And at the end of the day, if you don't, if you're not that person who helps, humans realize that you are there in it together with them, then that, journey is not possible. Because journeys are going to be hard. The only way you bring people together and believe in it and get up after a setback and continue to show the courage that's necessary for it to grow and pursue that vision is the compassion that you show, not just to your colleagues, but also to your partners and to your customers.
Yeah.